long before the rise of emperors and samurai. In the celestial plains above the earth, there shone a goddess so radiant that her light bathed the world in warmth and life. Her name was Amaterasu, the sun goddess of Japan. Revered by gods and mortals alike, Amaterasu ruled the heavens with grace and power. Wherever her gaze fell, rice fields blossomed, rivers sparkled, and the world flourished. She was born from the left eye of Izanagi, the father of gods, and was granted dominion over the sun. Her siblings were Tsukuyami, the calm moon, and Susanoo, the stormy sea. Together, these three kami were destined to shape the balance of the world. But harmony, as we shall see, is a fragile thing. Far beneath the golden skies of Amaterasu, the sea god Susanoo raged. He was wild, impulsive, and burdened with sorrow. His father Izanagi had commanded him to leave the heavens, and Susanoo, furious and misunderstood, decided to see his sister one last time. But his arrival was not one of peace. When Susanoo entered the heavenly plains, the very winds howled, the clouds thickened, and the earth trembled beneath his feet. Amaterasu, wary but loyal, greeted her brother. To test his sincerity, she proposed a divine challenge. Each would produce sacred offspring from the other's possessions, a symbol of harmony. But Susanoo's pride was wounded, and he lashed out. In a violent frenzy, he tore through her sacred rice fields, destroyed ceremonial halls, and hurled filth into the palace of the gods. Worst of all, he killed one of Amaterasu's handmaidens inside her sacred weaving hall. That single act broke her spirit. Her brother had crossed the line between chaos and cruelty. The heavens, once radiant and full of song, fell silent. And so, the sun goddess turned her back to the world and walked into the shadows. Shaken by her brother's wrath, Amaterasu, the light of the heavens, withdrew. She turned away from the sacred skies and walked toward the shadows. She found refuge in a narrow cavern known as Amano Iwato, the heavenly rock cave. There, behind a massive stone, she sealed herself away, hiding her radiance from gods and mortals alike. The moment she vanished, the world changed. The sky turned to ash, crops withered, rivers ran cold, shadows crept over every village and valley, and the people cried out for warmth that would not return. Even the gods were shaken. Without her brilliance, rituals lost their power. Balance between heaven and earth collapsed. Susanoo, confronted with what he had done, was cast down from the heavens in disgrace. But Amaterasu did not see it. She saw nothing. She heard nothing. She had become silence itself. And in that silence, the world held its breath. With the sun vanished and the world in darkness, a sense of urgency gripped the heavenly realm. The gods, great and small, gathered near the entrance of Amano Iwato, the cave of the sun. This was the first divine council of its kind, a celestial summit born not of celebration, but of desperation. The fate of the world rested on their shoulders. Among the deities stood Omoikane, the god of wisdom and deliberation. His mind, sharp as obsidian, worked tirelessly to devise a plan to coax Amaterasu from her self-imposed exile. His idea was daring and strange. They would not fight the darkness with force, but with laughter, light, and mystery. They forged a flawless bronze mirror so pure it could reflect the soul. They hung sacred jewels from the branches of the sakiki tree. And in the center of it all stood the unpredictable goddess of mirth and performance, Aim no Yuzum. Her role would be unlike any before, to bring back the light, not with prayers, but with laughter. As the gods took their positions, the mirror in place, the jewels gleaming in the faint glow of divine hope, they waited in silence at the mouth of the cave. It was time to awaken the sun. At the mouth of the heavenly cave, a hush fell over the assembly. The gods stood motionless, as if holding their breath. Then, stepping forward beneath the sakiki tree, came Aim no Yuzum, the goddess of dawn, joy, and divine mischief. Unlike the solemn deities that surrounded her, Yuzum wore no fear. She smiled, she laughed, she danced. Her movements began slowly, like ripples on still water. Then they grew wilder. Her sleeves fluttered like wings, her feet stomped like thunder, and her laughter echoed through the darkness. With every outrageous gesture, a slip of her robe, a twist of her hips, a shriek of delight, the gods howled with laughter. The heavens, once cold and silent, now trembled with joy. Driven by curiosity and a faint flicker of hope, she inched closer to the entrance. The laughter grew louder, and then she asked, "What is so amusing?" It was the first time her voice had touched the world in ages, and the gods smiled, knowing their plan was working. Amaterasu stood just behind the threshold of the cave, her golden eyes peering into a world she no longer trusted. The voices of the gods echoed with joy, and yet she remained hidden, wounded by betrayal and sorrow. Still cloaked in shadow, she leaned forward, just enough for a single beam of her divine radiance to touch the outside air. And that was when she saw it. Suspended from the sacred Sakiki tree, her own face, but not as she remembered. The goddess in the mirror shone with strength, sorrow, resilience. She was both divine and deeply human, luminous, yet burdened. Mesmerized, she stepped closer, drawn not by command or duty, but by a hunger to recognize herself again, to remember who she was before pain, before chaos, before fear. And in that sacred instant, with her full presence finally outside, the world stirred. The clouds dissolved, the wind breathed again, the crows cawed, and light returned. But the gods knew this moment was fragile. Before Amaterasu could retreat once more, the strong Kami Aimno Tajikareo, the god of strength, leapt forward and sealed the cave behind her with the sacred boulder. It was not an act of force, but of protection, to never again let the world fall into such darkness. The gods bowed before Amaterasu, not as prisoners begging for sun, but as children welcoming back their mother. The sun goddess, touched by the reverence and love of her fellow Kami, rose once more to her rightful place in the heavens. With Amaterasu once more in the sky, the world stirred from its long and dreamless slumber. The golden light bathed the mountains, kissed the oceans, and filtered through the forests with a warmth that had been long forgotten. The Kami, humbled and joyful, bowed before their radiant queen. Each one offered tokens of gratitude, sake in lacquered bowls, sacred songs, silent prayers. Harmony had been restored, not by force, but by wisdom, unity, and laughter. But the sun goddess had changed. She was no longer simply the bringer of dawn. She had become a goddess reborn, stronger not despite the darkness, but because of it. As a sign of forgiveness, she sent light even to the corners of the world where her brother Susanoo had fallen. And though he wandered in exile, the sun's warmth reached him too. Balance had returned, not a perfect one, but a living one. The sun and the storm, laughter and sorrow, light and shadow, all part of the great weave of existence. And so the heavens opened once again. Festivals were born to remember this divine tale. Shrines were raised, songs were sung, and the people of Japan, generation after generation, looked to the sky not just for warmth, but for hope. But this was only the beginning, for from the light of Amaterasu, a legacy would be born, one that would bridge the heavens and the earth forever. Though the heavens once again shimmered with light, Amaterasu's work was not yet done. From her throne in the high plain of heaven Takamagara, she looked upon the earth below and saw that humanity still struggled in shadow. The gods had restored their balance, but who would guard harmony in the mortal realm? Who would carry the divine light into a world so often swayed by fear, war, and forgetting? She summoned her beloved grandson, Ninigi no Makoto, and entrusted him with 3 sacred treasures, symbols of divine rule: the sword, the mirror, and the jewel. Together, they would form the heart of a new empire, rooted in wisdom, courage, and purity. With the blessings of the heavens and the hopes of all the gods, Ninigi descended to the earth to plant the seed of order, compassion, and light among humankind. From his line, centuries later, would rise a sovereign, Emperor Jimmu, the first emperor of Japan. And through him, the divine blood of Amaterasu would flow into every generation to come. From his line, centuries later, would rise a sovereign, Emperor Jimmu, the first emperor of Japan. And through him, the divine blood of Amaterasu would flow into every generation to come. As long as light returns after darkness, I am with you,